In this section, I'm going to go over exposure mode. Exposure mode determines what settings you have control over. For Nikon, the options are P, S, A, and M. P means programmed auto. When shooting in P, your camera will set your shutter speed, aperture, and ISO for you. This is basically like shooting in full auto. So you will have no control over any of your settings. S means shutter priority auto. When shooting in S, your camera will set your aperture and ISO, and you will set your shutter speed. This is like shooting in half auto. So you will select what shutter speed you want your camera to be at, and then once you select your shutter speed, your camera will set everything else for you. A means aperture priority auto. When shooting in A, your camera will set your shutter speed and ISO, and you will set your aperture. This is also like shooting in half auto. So you will set your aperture at what you want your aperture to be, and once you set your aperture, your camera will set everything else for you. S and A are very similar, the way that your camera is working. It's just that in S, you select your shutter speed, and in A, you select your aperture. But once you select a setting on each of these options, your camera is going to do everything else for you. M means manual. When shooting in M, you will set the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. You will have full control over all of your settings. To shoot in full manual, you want to pick the exposure mode M. Right here on my camera is the exposure mode, so I just press this down, and then once I press this down, and then I can select the option that I want to shoot in. So I always select M. I shoot on full manual 100% of the time. I shoot in full manual because I want to have complete and full control over everything, so that way my picture will look 100% the way that I want it to look. If I let the camera set my settings for me, it does not know the exact look that I want to achieve, and it won't pick the same options that I would have. I don't want to take any chances that it will set something wrong, so I want to set everything myself. Shooting in manual allows me to get really awesome straight out of camera pictures. Shooting in full manual will also help me to get the sharpest pictures possible. By achieving great straight out of camera pictures, it takes me less time in post-processing.